achieved.
As fans of the UFC and as fans of mixed martial arts in general, we all want to see the promotion do well. We want to see fighters fight, we want to see the best fights possible, and we want to see the sport grow. But I think one of the things with the UFC's model, which is certainly holding it back, is the pay-per-view model. And I've talked about this before. And the reason I'm bringing it up now is because we are getting a Fight Night event, which is being headlined by a title fight, which is pretty darn interesting. Jessica Andrade is heading to China to put her title on the line against Weili Zhang, which should be an excellent matchup. And for those of you who are able to tune into the matchup, you get to see a UFC championship bout contested on, not on a pay-per-view. And the reason I'm talking about this is because what happens is, more often than not, the biggest fights, the biggest names are on UFC pay-per-views. And general fans don't tune into those necessarily. They don't want to spend the $60 or $65 to buy a pay-per-view. And they miss out on them. And then they get the fight nights where there's still some excellent fights, but they're lesser-known fighters. It's not nearly as exciting for these people, and they just don't get jacked up. But what would happen, I think, if the UFC spent the year looking to put 5 to 6 UFC titles on the line on free TV? I think it would generate a lot more interest in the sport. You know, could you imagine if you had a fight night where Jon Jones was defending his title against, the 8th or 9th ranked guy in the division? It's expected Jones wins, but still you get to see him, and then you fill the card with other, maybe not nearly as well-known fighters, but still very good fighters who you want people to get locked into. And suddenly they tune in to see Jon Jones, but you see these other guys fighting on this show as well, and suddenly they get interested in them, and they look for the next opportunity to see them compete. And before you know it, now their depth of knowledge of the roster and of the sport and of the fighters grows, and then they might buy back into the pay-per-views because, hey, I saw this guy fight twice on TV. I'm interested in seeing his next fight. And I think that's one of the issues the UFC is having, is they're not able to create this new breed of superstar because they're sheltered from the general public. And the general public doesn't see them nearly as much as they used to. And they're overshadowed by the fact that the UFC has so many shows and so many fighters in the roster. We're not able to lock onto these guys because either A, we're not tuning in to watch the show every single week, or B, this fighter is on a pay-per-view that we're not tuning in to see because, hey, next weekend there's going to be a free fight as well. Just a thought. Welcome back to Kamikaze Overdrive MMA Predictions. Always, I am your host, Scott Johnson, and on this episode of the show, we are breaking in the upcoming UFC Fight Night 157 event, which will take place on August 31st. It's an early morning event, so make sure you tune in. I believe the main card transpires at 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll be giving you my 5 main card predictions for this show. All of my preliminary picks, as per usual, will be available at kamikazeoverdrive.net. Again, we are headed to China, which should always is interesting to see how that turns out, see how the locals fare. We've got a number of other not well-known, but at least noteworthy fighters on this card. We've got a lot of lesser-known fighters, a lot of debuting fighters, or guys we haven't seen a lot of. We'll see how that shakes out. Now, I'm coming off an event in which I went 8-4. I lost the main event with Daniel Cormier. And, you look at my gold plays, I had Corey Sandhagen and Manny Bermudez paired together, and I had Sadiq Youssef and Daniel Cormier paired together. Neither one of them came through. But after you get through that, silver play, Paulo Costa straight up, Derrick Brunson and Drakkar Klose paired together, bronze play, Nate Diaz on his own as well. In my casual betting cluster, I had Brunson, Costa, and Klose put together. Again, if I just got one more win of one of those big fighters, we're talking about a big payday. But again, it turned out to be fairly decent nonetheless. I'll have a bet pack for this show, and then you will see the subscription package turn over for September and October as we continue this continued push for pretty much a fight every single weekend for the not too distant future. As we go forward, very much looking forward to the pay-per-view next weekend. We are going to get an opportunity to see Khabib Nurmagomedov and Dustin Poirier go head-to-head. That should be a fantastic matchup, and of course we'll talk about that in due time. On that note, though, we need to get to our first main card prediction. The opening fight of the main card transpires in the women's flyweight division as China's Yanan Wu, with a current record of 10 wins and 2 losses, takes on the debuting short notice replacement fighter and Invicta veteran Mizuki Inoue, with a current record of 13 wins and 5 defeats. Now, this fight has a bit of a background story. Luana Carolina and Wu were supposed to fight UFC 237. Wu pulled out of that one. Luana and Wu were supposed to fight here, I believe, and then in early August, this time Carolina was forced to pull out, and we saw Inoue stepping in. She's making her UFC debut. She fought 7 times under the Invicta banner, going 4-3, and she owns wins over decent, noteworthy fighters like Alex Chambers, Beck Rollins, and Vivian Pahesh, and her losses in that promotion, Alexa Grasso and Carolina Kovacevic. So certainly fought some high-level competition. on the outside of the UFC. For Wu, she's 1-1 in the UFC, a decision loss to Gina Mazzini, and a submission victory over Lauren Mueller. Physically, Wu 4 inches taller than Inoue, and she's the younger fighter by 2 years. Now, Wu is coming off a fight where she wasn't looking overly good. She got dropped and then proceeded to catch her opponent off her back with an armbar for the victory. And, impressive win over Lauren Mueller, got her back on track and avoided an 0-2 start to her UFC run. And when you look at Wu's regional competition, her last 3 non-UFC victories came over opponents with a combined record of 0 wins and 8 losses. That is concerning. And then when you look further, and you look at the one girl she's beat in the UFC, Lauren Mueller, she had a similar regional record where she really had faced next to no quality competition before coming to the UFC. So that kind of really casts some doubt on Wu's level of competition, or at least her level of opponent she's able to defeat. Now, what she does, she likes to grind, get in close, and break her opponents down. And she's got, she'll throw her hands, but again, she gets a little bit sloppy at times. She had issues with Mazzini when she kept losing position, was getting tired, and then taken down in that fight, and that really cost her as the fight pressed on. She's had a lot of first-round stoppages in her career, a number at least. And while she has gone 5 rounds in other fights, it just seems like her cardio is not up to par. But the third round in that fight, again, she was defensively vulnerable. Again, she was very sloppy. She was very tired and just wasn't looking herself. Now, when you look at Mizuki Inoue's record, she has 9 wins by submission, no wins by knockout, and she's 4-4 in decisions. She comes from a judo background. Like I previously said, she's faced some good level competition. She's faced some girls who really know what they're doing. That win over Pahesh, she arguably lost the first round of her back, the majority of it, but then spent the final minute in full mount, pounding down shots, might have scooped it out, and eventually won a decision in that fight. She's got a solid 1-2 on the feet, good head movement overall, bouncing around, and then she has a nice level change for a double leg takedown. If she can land that, it's very impressive. Now, when you look at Wu, she's fighting at home, which is a huge advantage for her. Inoue is coming in with about a month to prep. Inoue is a far more established, far more accomplished veteran fighter, even though they're roughly the same age. For Wu, she's just too sloppy for my liking. She'll slow down in fights. She'll give up takedown. She'll give up position, and you're able to land shots on her as well, especially if Inoue looks to counter as she pushes forward. I see in this one with Inoue coming from that judo background. I think she's going to defend those takedowns. She's going to shut Wu down in the clinch when she tries to tie up with her, even though she is the smaller girl. And then once Wu starts to tire, look for Inoue to counter those positions, use some throws even, and get on top and hold top position and really score some points from there. Inoue's as I said, she's faced better competition, and she is coming in with about a month to prepare for this fight. I like her here to find success in a very grinding fight. I do have some concerns about the possibility of a hometown decision being handed out, but I think Inoue gets the better of a fighter who is probably not as good as her record would indicate. So my prediction is Mizuki Inoue to defeat Yanan Wu by decision. Fight number 2 in the UFC's main card goes down in the featherweight division, with a couple fighters I'm probably going to butcher their names. The coming in late notice Chinese fighter Zhenhong Liu, with a current record of 16 wins and 6 losses, takes on the undefeated Russian Movsar Evloev with a current record of 11 wins and no losses and no draws. Now, Mike Grundy was expected to face Evloev in this matchup, but he pulled out and was replaced by Zhenhong with less than 2 weeks to prep. Evloev won his debut against Zhang Wu Choi back in April to remain undefeated, so he's already got a little bit of taste of the UFC action. Liu's coming in after a loss in this fight, which ended a 9-fight winning streak. He's probably that 9-fight winning streak to give him the nod here. Physically, he's 1 inch taller, 1 inch older. This is actually a rematch dating back to 2015 where they fought under the M1 banner. Evloev won it by decision, just a 2-round decision to take that one home. And when you look at how they looked coming into that fight, Liu, it was his 9th pro fight. He was 6-2 coming into it. For Evloev, just his 2nd time as a professional mixed martial artist. So 2 guys in definitely different spots. Now, it's also worth noting they were fighting outside. It looked like it was raining, which is far from ideal conditions. They won't have to deal with that here. They were also fighting in a ring, which takes away some of the weapons of a fighter looking to close in on opponents. With the ring there, you can't really clamp down on them on the wall like you can in the UFC. It also takes away from a fighter's ability to get back to their feet by using the cage to wall walk and get back vertical. So again, we could see some elements in this fight that weren't available to either man in the first fight. Now, in that matchup, Evloev utilized a takedown heavy attack. He used body locks, took his opponent down, ground and pound, worked to his back a couple times and controlled the position from back mount, and really just rendered Liu very defensive throughout the entire contest. And honestly, Movsar used a very similar approach in his UFC debut. 5 takedowns overall, usually from the body lock. Drag his opponent to the floor, land some heavy ground and pound. Good top pressure. It seemed like once he gets on top, it's difficult to get out from underneath of him, and he was able to ride that one out en route to a 15-minute decision. When you look at his pro record, 4 wins by submission, 3 by TKO. He's very good from top position. He utilizes striking, but primarily, again, to set up that gap close, to get in, get his hands on his opponent, and get them down. Again, look for that body lock to set up the majority of his takedowns. Now, for Wu, his last 3 wins have been solid. His opponent's 39-20 combined, but he is coming off a loss to an opponent with a 10-8 record. That is concerning. The short notice factor is concerning as well. It's also concerning when you look at his recent performances. He's also been the type of guy who's utilized a top-heavy attack. Takedowns, hold top position, land ground and pound, and just grind out the fight. So arguably this fight comes down to who can win that grinding back-and-forth battle, who can hold top position, who can do a better job here. Liu was the far more experienced fighter in their first fight and got absolutely dominated for 2 rounds. Evloev has a full camp and his UFC debut already under his belt coming into this versus a guy making a short notice debut. Yes, Liu is fighting at home, which certainly is something to help him out here. But again, look for Evloev to break him down early with pressure, and the impact of that short notice and lack of prep will take effect as this fight advances into rounds 2 and 3, with the takedowns and top control coming more and more easily for the Russian. Look for Evloev to control top position, hold him down, beat him up. He could get a finish here, but my prediction is Movsar Evloev to defeat Zhenhong Liu by decision. Hitting the midway mark of the main card, we're in the UFC's flyweight division for a matchup of fighters we knew a little bit more about. As New Zealand, I believe it is Kai Kara-France, 19-7-0, battles 11-2 Mark de la Rosa. Now, coming into this fight, the flyweight division appears to be making a bit of a revitalization, coming back to notoriety with the champion sticking around and making a name for himself. They might even strip him of the title and try and claim a new champ, which could be very interesting. Both guys want to stake a claim, though, for an opportunity to be a contender in the future, and a win here goes a long way. Now, for Kai Kara-France, he's 2-0 in the UFC. He has won 7 in a row, narrowly edging out Raulian Paiva in his last fight. I had Paiva, and I thought Paiva won. It was a split decision. I felt him fighting at home, or at least in Australia, certainly helped him. I can't remember which is which. And he also has a decision win over Elias Garcia as well in his debut. Now, for De La Rosa, he's 2-2 in the UFC, losses to Alex Perez and Tim Elliott. Split decision win over Joby Sanchez, and submitted the aforementioned Garcia, this time I think he caught him with a rear naked choke, I believe. Now, for De La Rosa, he's 1 year older. He's 1 inch taller than Kai Kara-France, but it is Kara-France with a 4-inch reach advantage. Now, looking at De La Rosa first, he's an experienced jiu-jitsu black belt, 6 wins by submission. He scored 2 takedowns in the Garcia fight en route to the finish, but he wasn't able to complete a single takedown against Joby Sanchez, who has noteworthy issues on the mat. Couldn't get him down, wasn't setting up his takedowns very well, and just struggled in that situation. Now, we have seen in fights, especially when he's put on his back, and he's sometimes too willing to commit to jiu-jitsu and tries to fight off his back, attempt with submissions, look for sweeps. He can lose rounds from this position if he's not doing enough, and that's certainly a concern. On the feet, he will throw hands. He's got decent combinations. He can counter-strike. I like his low kicks, and he maintains pressure overall fairly well. Again, he's confident because he doesn't mind going to his back, whether that's a good thing or not. It's certainly something that he's aware of. Now, again, he's far more effective when he can blend his striking together with his grappling. If he can change levels and shoot takedowns and threaten with those things, it makes his striking that much more effective. And in both his defeats, it's worth noting his opponents were able to take him down and win the grappling exchanges. Elliott scored a takedown, submitted him, and just really big brothered him, just overwhelmed him. And Perez took him down and landed some heavy ground and pound. Took him down a couple of times, landed some heavy ground and pound once he got him there. Now, for Kai Kara-France, he's got some good hands, decent pop, throws hard, but he has a tendency to be a little bit of a single-note striker, throwing some single shots in there. He was getting boxed up, I thought, with a more fluid boxing of Paiva, especially as that fight went on. I also wasn't a huge fan of the way he struggled to initiate the grappling exchange with Paiva, and at times he got put on his back, just making some desperation attempts to get the fight to the mat, and they just did not work out. When he fought Garcia, he won that fight because of Garcia's willingness to go to his back, but he still had trouble with the active offensive grappling attack of Garcia. He was able to shut it down to get the win, but it's still worth noting there were some issues there. For De La Rosa, he is too good a grappler for Kai Kara-France to mess around with and potentially give up position. Because De La Rosa is one of those guys, if he gets your back or he gets you in a dominant position from top, you are in some serious trouble. I'm also a little bit concerned with Kai Kara-France's cardio. He tends to slow down in bouts, and De La Rosa could absolutely create some major issues on the mat against a tired opponent. It's one thing to be fresh or at least not exhausted when you hit the mat with a superior grappler, but to be exhausted and put on the mat with a guy who's going to beat you up and who's going to eventually work towards submission, it is suffocating. Now, I feel like Kai Kara-France is going to come out strong here, land the heavier single strikes, possibly win the opening round, but I think we're going to start to see De La Rosa get back into this matchup late in the first round and potentially into the second round. Look for him to land some more fluid combinations, counter strike, and then start to mix in that grappling, start to time takedowns, start to clinch up, and just start to wear on Kai Kara-France a little bit here. De La Rosa is going to find success with volume, clinch fighting, and eventually scoring those takedowns. I think this is going to be a very close fight, but I put my money on the underdog here. I've got Mark De La Rosa to defeat Kai Kara-France, most likely by decision, possibly a split. We move now to the co-main event of the evening. We're in the UFC's welterweight division as Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos, 21-5-0 from Brazil, takes on China's Jingliang Li with a current record of 16 wins and 5 defeats. Now, dos Santos is close to contention in a welterweight division with a lot of rising contenders and new faces. He has beaten some very good, those guys are also on the cusp. He beat Curtis Millender when Millender had won 9 in a row. He beat Sean Strickland, Max Griffin, Lyman Good, Kita Nakamura, Omari Akhmedov. That's a great lineup of guys, and he is nearing that step in competition. I feel if he gets by the leech here, this is his opportunity to make that push, and he's an exciting fighter. I absolutely feel like the UFC will bolster him up the ranks with a win here. Now, this fight was supposed to happen back in China last November. Dos Santos pulled out, and Lee, his record in UFC is solid as well. He's 8-3 inside the octagon, 6-1 in his last 7 wins over David Zawada, who stepped in to take that fight. Abe Camacho, his biggest win to date, I would say, over Diego Lima. His losses against Nordin Taleb, Kita Nakamura, and Jake Matthews. The most prominent fighters he's probably fought in his career, he's come up short against. Physically, Lee is 1 inch taller, 2 inch reach advantage for Santos, and Lee is the younger fighter by 2 years. Now, like Weili Zhang in the main event, Lee is a key fighter for the UFC to help them reach into that Chinese market. This is a big card, but it's also a very tough opponent they've paired him with, and of course, obviously, Weili Zhang with as well. And I don't know if one of them can escape with a victory here. We'll have to wait and see. For Lee, he's a grinder. Throws decent, 1-2 moving forward and keeps engaging. He's got some decent pop in his hands. We haven't really seen him put a lot of guys down in the UFC, but he has stopped those he's been able to land flush with. Good low kicks. He will counter-strike as well. His hands tend to get a little bit low, which I'm not a huge fan of, and it leaves him defensively vulnerable. More concerning, though, is that he likes to walk through punishment. He's never been knocked out. He's been hurt on multiple occasions. Like when he fought Jake Matthews, he got hurt early in that fight. He never really seemed to recover and lost a decision, but he just likes to walk forward, and a guy with some power like Dos Santos could absolutely wreck him if he can connect. The other thing with Jingliang is he's got away from his takedowns. He landed a lot of takedowns early in his UFC career, much less in recent action. He's not easy to take down either, but offensively, he could reintroduce that into his game. It makes him a more diversified and more capable fighter. Now, for Dos Santos, he's coming off an impressive win where he exploited his opponent's ground issues and submitted him. That tells me he's a very smart and aware fighter. He is a finisher overall. He throws hard. He offers a lot of different techniques. Spinning attacks, sometimes capoeira based, just unorthodox at times, but very effective. Overall, 14 wins by knockout, many in the first round, but he's also got multiple late round finishes, including his win over Akhmedov. In a fight he was probably losing, he carried his power deep into that matchup and put a fading Akhmedov away. He's coming off multiple quick finishes, but he's also showcased he's a capable volume striker. He will throw down in longer fights, usually hitting that 70 to 80 mark in the significant strikes. So both guys are capable in a lot of different areas. So the question has to be asked, how do they win? For Lee, I butchered his name, Lee, he wins with volume and pressure. He needs to keep pressing Dos Santos, keep tight to him to limit his ability to land those big strikes, to set up knees or kicks or turning, any number of techniques he uses, and transition that pressure to takedowns and top control. We have seen Dos Santos give up some takedowns at time, and if Lee can mix it up, he can take home a decision. I don't know about a stoppage because Dos Santos is pretty damn tough, but either way, it could lead to a decision victory. Now, for Dos Santos, he's the more diversified striker. He hits harder. He's got more knockout potential. He needs to capitalize on Lee's willingness to push forward and hurt him every time he comes forward. Eventually, you need to push into putting him down, but make him pay and back him off. Show him that if you're going to push forward and you're going to eat my shots, it's going to hurt. And I think that's the key to his success here. Neither guy's decision record is great. I think home field advantage could be a huge thing for Lee if they do go the distance. I don't anticipate this fight going the distance. I wasn't impressed with Lee against Jake Matthews, how they competed on the feet. I felt Matthews really boxed him up and took advantage of him on the feet and had a lot of success in that fight that I didn't expect to see him have. I think Dos Santos can do the same here. Overall, Lee's faced lesser competition. Dos Santos has faced much better opposition. I feel like he's just making a big push here to join the ranks of other rising welterweight contenders. So my prediction is Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos to defeat Jingliang Li by knockout. In the main event of the evening, we're in the UFC women's strawweight division as the newly crowned champion, Brazil's Jessica Andrade, with a current record of 20 wins and 6 losses, takes on the 19-1 title contender, Weili Zhang, fighting out of China. A huge opportunity fighting at home against the champion. Now, Andrade has been almost unstoppable since coming to 115 pounds. You look at the list of fighters she's beaten. Rose, taking down Karolina Kowalkiewicz, Torres, Gedalia, Calderwood, Hall. Even when she destroyed Jessica Penne back in the day, it was a huge win. Vicious victories in a lot of those cases. Her only loss coming against the former champion, Inoue and Jacek. So very impressive resume. Now for Zhang, as I said, she's fighting at home. China's probably their best hope right now for a UFC title. She's 3-0 in the UFC. And when you look at her record, it hasn't aged as well as it should have. She beat Danielle Taylor in her debut. She defeated Jessica Aguilar, destroyed her in very effective fashion. But she's very much fading. And then she's a solid win over now a backsliding Tecia Torres. Torres has lost 4 in a row and put up a good fight in that matchup, but I think her last performance really left a lot to be desired and maybe takes a little bit away from Weili Zhang's success. Physically, is it Zhang or Zhang, whatever, Weili Zhang, 5'4", 3 inches taller than Andre's 1 inch reach advantage. But again, for Jessica, who's the younger fighter by 2 years, she fought at freaking bantamweight, so the size factor is not going to cause her a lot of issues here. Now, I'm not saying the reach couldn't be an issue here, but at least the size isn't going to be an issue. So let's be realistic, though, when you look at what Jessica Andrade did against Rose Namajunas. I had Jessica to win that fight. I was not impressed. Pardon me. I was not impressed with what I saw from Andrade in the early stages. She was eating a lot of shots. Rose looked much better, but Andrade got in a good position, took advantage of it the second time she got it, slammed her, and finished that fight. Damn impressive victory. But you need to analyze the whole thing. Now, when you look at Weili Zhang, what she does, she cuts off the cage very well. Her hands are up. She throws hard combinations. She finishes combos with kicks. She's one of these girls who might come out and just say, let's go, Jessica. You like to scrap. I like to scrap. Let's throw down. That might not be the best approach, but it's certainly something she could consider. I like the way she throws those nice lead leg kicks to cover distance and to keep her opponent on the outside. Very effective tools. She'll mix in some spinning back kicks, which is not the most economical technique to use over a 5-round fight against a girl like Andrade, who's just going to fucking blitz you until the fight's over. It's also worth noting for Zhang, she has 9 wins by knockout. Some of them are ground-based TKOs, but she hits very hard on the feet and can do lots of damage with her hands when she does connect. She's not a big volume striker. She had 63 against Torres, 45 against Aguilar, and 77 against Taylor in her debut. Which when you compare that with what we're talking about with Andrade, that's not that impressive. She's got minimal long fight experience as well, despite her career being fairly, I can't remember what was the number we gave there, 20 fights? Yeah, 20 total fights. She has only gone into the 3rd round on 3 occasions. That's not huge. And now she's fighting a 5-round fight. So that certainly sets up a bit of a red flag against a very durable fighter. Now, Zhang scored a nice takedown and smashed Aguilar en route to eventually getting the submission. Very impressive victory there. She likes to utilize those headlock throws, which is going to be tough against Andrade. Andrade is so physically strong, and she's got that small frame. It's going to be very tough for Zhang to get in and get in a position to land those throws. When she fought Torres, she got tied up in the scrambles there, couldn't hold her down initially. In other exchanges, she was able to scramble some better positions. She countered Tecia with some a takedown attempt by Tecia and rolled on top, which was very impressive. Later on, though, Torres was able to capitalize on some mistakes and got on top position as well. And if Andrade gets on top, you look the fuck out. Ground and pound, maybe a guillotine choke to get the victory. She's dangerous. Now, Andrade, as I said, she's a physical powerhouse. She hits extremely hard. She's very durable as well. She likes to push forward, throws those barrages on the feet. She's got good volume. She's landed over 100 significant strikes on 4 occasions. She's got over 200 significant strikes 1 time in her UFC career. If she gets you on the mat, as I just mentioned, big ground and pound. Against Claudia Gadelha, who's a monster in herself on the mount, she held her down and brutalized her. I was one of the few people in that matchup. Well, I guess not few, but I just felt Andrade, it was all day for her to pick up the victory, and I was very impressed with that. Brutalized her on the ground. She's that guillotine choke, which is her favorite maneuver to get the victory, so look for that if she gets the opportunity. Against Rose, she was able to slam her down. She tied her up, physically showed her strength, overpowered her, and smashed her on the mat. The grappling in this fight could come down to who's physically stronger. Technique for technique, they could be fairly close, and both girls like to use a lot of power in their technique, so it could come down to who's stronger, who can get the edge there. Now, the key to beating Andrade has been speed and movement. along with active long-range weapons. Joanna just kept her on the outside, jabbing away, and, avoided that forward pressure. Every time Andrade came forward, she ate a jab, she ate a combination, she ate something, and it just was not worth coming forward and eating those punches. For Rose was having a lot of success doing this as well, moving, jabbing, shutting down a lot of the forward pressure, a lot of head movement, a lot of footwork, looked much faster than Jessica Andrade, and again, it didn't work out for her, but you saw in the snippets where it was working, it was very effective. I'm not sure Zhang can do that. She's not nearly as active on the feet. She stands in front of her opponents way too much, and I don't know how well she's going to deal with the pressure from Andrade. There is that concern over a hometown decision coming into effect here, but I'm not sure Zhang, with her limited 3-round experience, how she will hold up in rounds 4 and 5 with the type of pressure that Jessica Andrade is going to bring, and start wailing on you when she gets you tired, when she gets you pinned on the cage at the end of round 3, and you've been brutalized to the body. How is she going to hold up, and then how is she going to hold up the next 2 rounds as well? In this fight, I think Jessica Andrade is going to push forward. She'll land the bigger strikes. Maybe over the first 10 minutes, we'll see a little bit of Zhang having success, avoiding, circling out. I think Andrade will avoid the takedowns as Zhang tries to switch things up. Eventually, we're going to see Andrade put her down either with a sequence of big shots or just too much over time. And my prediction is Jessica Andrade to defeat Weili Zhang by TKO. So those are my 5 main card predictions for UFC Fight Night 157. All of my preliminary picks will be available at kamikazeoverdrive.net. Yes, I'm very aware I didn't pick a single Chinese fighter on the main card, which is certainly concerning. We'll see how things play out. Again, I don't know. You look at the main event, Andrade is a monster. The co-main event, that could be their best shot, maybe leak an upset Dos Santos with pressure. I don't know. With maybe a hometown decision, we'll have to wait and see. Either way, I'm very much looking forward to this card. It should be a lot of fun, and the bets will be flowing. Remember, it's an early morning card on Saturday morning, so do not wake up and forget to get your money in after the fact. We'll see how things turn out. Either way, thanks for tuning in, guys. Follow me on Twitter at KO_predictions. I loved the effort last time. A lot of people wanted to try and get me to 100 likes on a video. We fell just short at 93. I appreciate it. Again, I don't anticipate that happening here, but again, like, subscribe, all of those fun things if you are interested. And on that note, we've got some work to do. Take care, guys. I'll talk to you soon. Hi.